Well, good to see everybody here. I see that they've started, I guess it was now they're doing a teens class, which takes about half the class away here, doesn't it? It's all right, though. I think they'll benefit a lot from that class. I'd like to consider our sympathy. It goes out to our brother Chris and his family. I don't know if any of you heard, his grandfather passed away recently. So it was not unexpected, but it did seem like he went on much longer than anticipated. But we remember that our sympathy for Chris and for his family, for his loss. The Bible teaches us to weep with those that weep, to rejoice with those that rejoice. And so as we consider our brother in all cases. As we continue our study of the nature of angels, we've discussed many of their properties already. They're superhuman knowledge but not omniscient. They're superhuman power but not omnipotent, and they're tremendous mobility but not omnipresent. And I'd like to consider more regarding some of their characteristics. As we look at who they are, what are they? What is their essence, I guess you might say? I'd like you to look at Psalm 104. Psalm 104. Verse 4. Think about verse 1. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who covers thyself with light and with a garment, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire. We've looked at Hebrews 1:14. We talked about are not angels ministering spirits to them that love the Lord? Okay, and we see here that God has made his angels spirits, and this is important. We know that we have a spirit, but we're not. Our essence is not. Well, I guess I wouldn't say that. I mean, we do have a spirit, and we also have physical. But just as God is spirit, and them that worship him must worship him in truth and in spirit. So as we worship God, it's with our spirit, okay? And it's because God is spirit. So what does God look like? Well, we don't, there are lots of personifications in the Bible. I think it's called onomatopoeia. I think that's a fancy term for giving physical properties to the nature of God. Talk about God's hand, God's eyes, I'm sorry? Anthropomorphism, giving manly or mankind attributes to and morphing it to the nature of God. Yeah, okay. Not onomatopoeia, that's something else. Anthropomorphism. Thank you, Pam. And but does God really have hands? Well, we know, that's how, only way we can imagine is what we're used to. We're used to seeing the physical. We're used to seeing arms and hands and feet and all that, and faces. And so when the Bible reveals aspects of God or aspects that, knowing that God is spirit, and yet it's like we live in such a world that like what would be a good example of something that doesn't relate that that like what does well, let's take what's our favorite song? We think of a song that's your favorite, and you think about what it sounds like. What's it look like? What's that song look like? it's irrelevant because it doesn't have an appearance other than what's in our imagination. It's sound. It's of that particular medium that it's auditory and not visual. Okay, it's audible, not visual. And so it's like, what does God look like, or what do angels look like? That's the same question. As we see that God has made angels spirits, and we see it in Hebrews 1:7 and 14 that He has made that they are spirits. The Greek term that's used in the New Testament, as a matter of fact, it's pneuma. It's where we get our word pneumatic. Pneumatic is referring to air. A pneumatic system is like air brakes. That's a pneumatic system. It uses air pressure to achieve work, and quite impressive results. They use pneumatics in locomotives, trains. Trains are a mile long. They're all controlled by air brakes. So you get a tremendous effect by that. But yet it's only air. And the word for pneuma means wind or air. And yet it uses that term for the Spirit, the Holy Spirit particularly, and it means wind. Look at John chapter 3, verse 8. To get an idea, this is just as an illustration and not as a... let's just read it. John 3, verse 8. And Jesus talking to Nicodemus, he makes a statement here that is really often misrepresented by those who be teaching this passage. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh. Sort of like asking, what does that song look like? It doesn't have any appearance. So I said, the wind bloweth, and you see, and it blows wherever it blows, and you hear the sound of it, but you canst not tell whence it cometh. You don't know where it's coming from, and whither it goeth, you don't know where it's going. You can see the effects of the wind. You can look on the leaves of the tree, and you can see the leaves swaying in the breeze, and you know there's a wind there, but you don't know where that wind is coming from, and you don't know where that end is going to end up, and whither it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit. Now, he's not talking about this is what the Holy Spirit is. You can see the Christian and his changes, but you don't know where that change comes from. That's how the Holy Spirit works. No. He's talking about the Christians, those who are born of the Spirit. He's not talking about the Holy Spirit. He's talking about individuals who have believed and obeyed the gospel. Okay. Such as everyone that is born of the Spirit. Because he's talking about those who have... Jesus is talking to Nicodemus about entering into the kingdom, and he's telling you must be born again, you must be born of the water and the Spirit. And anyone who's born of the Spirit, well, you see the effects, but you don't see where they're coming from. You don't know where they're going. That's what it is. But as it's using this term, the wind, pneuma, bloweth where it listeth. And we think about the spirits are using that term, the Greek term pneuma. The spirits are not in the physical realm in the sense that we have our spirit that indwelleth these physical bodies, but as far as angels, they are spirits. They don't have physical bodies. Okay, what do angels look like? Well, that's what I'm saying. What does your favorite song look like? It doesn't apply. Same way, what does a spirit look like? Well, it doesn't apply because they aren't physical. They're spirits. Now, don't jump ahead of me, okay? This is the nature of angels. Now, we do know that men have seen angels, but what have they really seen? Okay. But typically, angels are often a term that's used is incorporeal or incorporeal. It's like they are of a nature that is not made of matter. Incorporeal. Incorporeal. Yes. Okay, thank you. Incorporeal. Incorporeal. What she said. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Okay. Webster's a good source for that. So that, let's see, they are not made of matter like we are made of matter. Okay, our physical bodies are made of matter. But of course, there's an aspect of us that is spirit, because we are spirit as well. Because otherwise, how can we worship God in spirit unless we do have a spirit to worship? Okay. But as we think about, they're normally invisible to the unaided eye. They're unable to be seen by the unaided eye. Okay. And we'll look at that now. First look at 2 Kings chapter 6. And we see how this is where we have looked at briefly before how angels have appeared before. We'll look at a couple of these to contrast that. 2 Kings chapter 6. We do know that angels appeared to Abraham as men, and he appeared to some of the prophets as men. Even to Daniel referred to the man Gabriel. And so they appeared to them as just men. Okay. But as we look in 2 Kings chapter 6, beginning of verse 17, we see another way that they have appeared before men. Look at verse 16. And he said, Thus saith the Lord, make this valley full of ditches. For thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet the valley shall be filled with water, that ye may drink, both ye and your cattle and your beasts. And this is but a light thing in the sight of the Lord. He will deliver the Moabites also into your hand. And he shall smite every fenced city and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all wells of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones. And it came to pass in the morning that the meat offering was offered, that behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. Now, maybe it's 1 Kings. That's very interesting, but that's not exactly what I was looking for. 1 Kings 6. Let me see what that is. No, that's not it. It's where the Elisha had seen the. Yeah, well. Oh. I was reading out chapter 4. Thank you. Okay. 6:17. Okay. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. All right, this goes back to, go back to verse 13. Well, 12. And one of his servants said, verse 11, Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for a thing that he had called his servants, said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? And one of his servants said, None, my lord, O king of Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. He said, Go and spy where he is, that he may send and fetch him. And it was told him, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. When the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, and host compassed the city both with horses and chariots. And the servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? So Elisha's servant was afraid because of the surrounding army, the horses and the chariots that are all about them. Okay. And verse 16, and he answered and said, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with him. Well, who's with them? There was Elisha and his servant. Who was going to help them out amongst all this powerful army that had encircled the city? And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened his eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. Okay, there was that Elisha's servant couldn't see. Elisha was confident that God was going to protect him, but Elisha couldn't see, so Elisha prayed that his servant could see. And what did he see? He saw the mountain was full of horses and the chariots of fire round about Elisha. Who were these chariots of fire? Who were these horses and chariots of fire? They were the great hosts that were there to protect Elisha Who would they be? Well, they're the ones that couldn't be seen by the unaided eye, but these were God's hosts, okay?
That was a literal or figurative language there?
And the use of the horses and the chariots of fire. This is one example where the angels were there to protect him. Was this a figurative? I think this is what this man saw. He saw the mountain that was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. He saw an army that was ready to defend them. I think that's what he saw. And you say, was it figurative or not? I have no problem with it being figurative or precise. That's what he really saw. And what were these the hosts of heaven? What I'm getting at is this is how they appeared to them for the purpose that God had set before them. God sent these angels for his purpose to protect Elisha, okay? And they were going to do battle if it came to it, okay? If it came to where they would have to do battle to protect Elisha, that's what they were geared up for. And so when you see that, I think this is one way that the appearance was manifested to them. Remember that angels are spiritual beings. They don't have bodies, except they have they appear as they are needed to appear as. Okay. In this case, they appeared as horses and chariots. And I'm sorry?
Driving chariots? They weren't in the chariots? We don't know, do we?
The driver. Where's the driver? I think it was the angels themselves. Yeah, that's how far can I press this? All I can say is the Bible's right. And is this figurative? Well, I think it's a language. It's describing these things that they are geared up for battle, and so the drivers are probably the angels. So all the accessories, the horse and the chariots, were part of it. You know. We'll go to the next example that might make more sense as what I mean. Okay. Okay. So that's one way that they appeared as horse-drawn chariots of fire, as it were. Now turn to Numbers 22. Numbers 22. You'll recall this account of that prophet who was pretty focused upon going his way, but was being impeded, and he couldn't figure it out until he was allowed to see why. Numbers 22. Beginning of verse 22. Well, actually, let's go back to verse 20. God came to Balaam at night and said unto him, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. But yet the word which I shall say unto thee, that shalt thou do. So there's this king that wanted Balaam to prophesy good things for his army. But it wasn't so. That was not God's will. So Balaam told him, no, I'm going to tell you exactly what God tells me. I'm not going to differ in any bit. And so as God is telling this Balaam, if you're called, you go with him, but you only tell them the things that I tell you. That's what you limit yourself to. Verse 22, and God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. So God was angry with him, so this angel was sent that stood in the way, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. So he was riding on his beast, and the two servants side by side. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. So here's this animal that sees this, and so what does he do? What does this animal do? And the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. So this animal, you know how ornery these donkeys can be, right? They're going to do what they want to do. They're bull-headed. They're donkey-headed. And so he's saying, get back on the road, you know. So he beats this animal to try to get him back, turn him back into the way. In verse 24, but the angel of the Lord stood in the path of the vineyards, and a wall being on his side, and a wall on that side. So there were two walls on either side. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself into the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. And he smote her again. Look, animal, you're not behaving yourself. So he starts beating this animal because to him it's just being ornery. He wants the animal to go where he wants it to go. In verse 26, and the angel of the Lord went further and stood in the narrow place where was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. So he's beating this animal because it just wasn't behaving itself. Okay, but the animal saw what was before him, but Balaam did not. And now this kills me in a figurative way. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said to Balaam, what have I done unto thee that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? What would you do if you're plowing a field and your horse, your ox, your donkey or whatever turned around and says, what are you doing? What are you going to say? Are you going to talk to this animal?
I would think it's time to go inside.
Yeah, that sun's bright, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said, have I ever done anything like this to you before? And he goes, no. I mean, he just answers her like nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Really? I was freaking out, but he just answers her.
Wesley told me a joke the other day. I didn't think much of it till think about this. I mean, it was kind of funny. But you have 2 potatoes in a hot oven. They're baking these potatoes. One potato says to the other, look, it's getting hot in here. Let's make a break for it. The other potato turns to the other, a potato that talks! Well, here, a donkey that talks. I thought that joke was kind of cute, but okay. And so the animal says, why have you hit me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me. I would there were a sword in my hand, for now would I kill thee. He just, like Pam said, he just answers them. I'm so mad. He was probably so mad he was beside himself. He didn't realize what was really going on. They're not English, right? or Hebrew or whatever language they were talking. Yeah. Okay. So he answers back. And the ass said unto Balaam, am I not thine ass upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And he said, nay, you've been a good animal. Okay, here's the thing. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed down his head, and he fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? You better be nice to your animals. Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. So here's the thing. As he said in verse 33, and the ass saw me, and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also that I had slain thee, and saved her alive. Your animal just saved your life. That's what the angel told him. But here's the thing. 2 things. First of all, Balaam could not see this angel except he'd been aided. He'd been given the ability to see this angel. But look at this angel standing in the way, sword drawn. Was a sword an implement that he carried around all the time, or was this part of the appearance, part of the necessary tools that were given him for his particular task? We saw previously that the horse-drawn chariots, and I presume there had been drivers on those chariots. There were warriors there. They were not merely empty chariots, but they were there for the purpose of protecting Elisha. Here we see where God's anger is kindled against Balaam, and so an angel was sent to impede his way, and he was about to kill Balaam, except his animal stopped and saved his life, basically. And we can look at other aspects, like we think about the avenger that went in through Egypt and killed all the firstborn, and in the land of Egypt. What tools did he use? Well, I don't know if they needed a tool or not. Also think about the 185,000 soldiers of Sennacherib, the Assyrian army that had died overnight because of the one angel. See, you should look at the power of the angels. What tools did they use? I don't know. Did they use a tool or what did they? I don't know. But all I'm trying to illustrate or show here is that the angels appeared in a way that was necessary for the job that was before them. We look at the angels that was sent to Daniel. He didn't have any weapons that we saw, though he did fight the angel, the prince of Persia, that angel. Okay. We also see whenever an angel would announce something, they didn't come with weapons. You know, it's just whatever is necessary for them, for whatever job they're given. But I'm illustrating here that they're spirits, and we don't see them in the physical realm. We only see them when we're aided. We're able to see them. So there is an appearance. There is a realm we can't see in the physical. So that they're being spirits we don't see, but it's in a different domain. And we need God's aid to see them. Look at Luke chapter 24. Luke chapter 24. And this goes along with the other ways that, and it leads to another question. Luke chapter 24. The question is, of course, as we look at the popular expressions of angels in art, drawings, cards, greeting cards, things like that, what do we see? And we discussed this before regarding when angels would come. We saw that they didn't have wings, they didn't have halos. You know, the halos. These are all inventions of I think the art of the 18th century or so, 16th, 17th, 18th century, where they began painting angels with wings. And and halos. You know, these are all just inventions that there's no real evidence in the Bible that shows that they have wings. Other than there are angels. We think about the cherubim that it describes. We'll discuss that when we go to different classes of angels. But we see that they had wings upon the mercy seat. That was a model that they were given, that Moses was given for the pattern. But that's an expression. It's artistic expression, I guess you might say. It was decorative, but it did have symbolic meaning, and that the presence of God, God made His presence known on the mercy seat about which these angels. Apparently, this was a humble posture before God, and so they were given wings. They were told to have wings. And we look at the Genesis account where the cherubim was sent to guard the gates, the way into the Garden of Eden. Okay, and the Genesis account doesn't talk about their wings at all. It just talks about their flaming sword being drawn to keep the way of the tree of life, which turned every way. That's interesting. And a flaming sword was turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. That was in Genesis 3:24. Okay, but we'll talk more about cherubim there. Other than that, there are the description in the Revelation about the appearance of those angels who were crying, "Holy, holy, holy," praising Christ, the Lamb that is worthy. And they talked about their flying but this, understand there was a vision that John was given, and their appearance was described to illustrate their characteristics and properties, not necessarily how they really looked. Okay, the eyes. If you looked at all the description, the description of Revelation, you'll see if you cling to one of the appearance features literally, then you need to also look at all the other appearance features literally, like all the eyes, all the faces. four faces, and everything like that. The same with the, I think it was Ezekiel that saw that as he described the angels in a way that was like, well, many modern, how can I describe them? Sensationalists, making movies like Chariots of the Gods, things like that. And they look at these things, oh, that's describing a flying saucer. Well, this is those descriptive and figurative ways that the properties are given in such a way that it was describing the characteristics or abilities of these angels, not how they really appeared. Okay, when it talks about the way they appeared, it's always about a man appeared to me. Okay, the man Gabriel. And when the angels appeared, and it talks about the kind of garments they would wear if they were describing their garments, and they talked about their countenance, how they shone, but it was not with wings and it wasn't with halos. So eventually, I'm going to get around to Luke 24, verse 39. So let's look at that right now. As we see here, why? That's not it. 22. Oh, wait, no. 24.
There's an account of an angel in 24. You see, where earlier in the chapter, it's
24 verse 1 has the angel of the tomb.
Okay. Okay, they found the stone rolled away in the sepulcher, and you're right, chapter 24, verse 2, and they entered and found not the body of the Lord Jesus, and it came to pass as they were perplexed thereabout. 2 men stood by them in shining garments. Okay, so it's talking about the appearance that they had. They're 2 men. Well, we understand this has to be angels, hosts of the heaven, because of what the message they have and the garments they had, talking about their shining garments. As they were afraid and bowed down their faces to the earth, they said unto them, Why seek ye the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen. This is also the angel having superhuman knowledge that the Christ is risen. I say superhuman knowledge. He wasn't stolen. His body wasn't stolen. They knew that he had become from the dead, been arisen from the dead. Well, I'd like you to look at Luke chapter 20 now, because this comes up, and we've discussed this slightly before, but as the Sadducees presented a contrived hypothetical situation where a woman has had 7 husbands, each one that she had, the first brother died, and the next one took her, as according to his responsibility, his obligation, according to the law of Moses. And he died, so his brother took her. And so you have 7 brothers that end up having this woman as their wife. And so finally they get to the question in the resurrection, which they didn't believe in. That's an important point. They didn't believe in the resurrection, but they're setting up the situation as though they did. And so they ask, whose husband is she going to be? Or rather, whose wife is she going to be? Who will be her husband? And verse 36. In verse 34, actually. And Jesus answering said unto them, The children of this world marry and are given in marriage. That's exactly what God intended from the very beginning. God created mankind both male and female, and for this cause shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife. We marry because we're male and female. That tells you a lot about God's intention for marriage. I don't need to go into all of that, but that sure makes a very powerful statement about what is a marriage and what is not, who can marry and who cannot marry each other. But they which shall be accounted worthy to obtain that world, speaking of the heavenly realm, and the resurrection from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage. Neither can they die anymore, for they are equal unto the angels. Now, I brought this up. There's another aspect. Let's see. So that here's what I'm getting at. In another account, Jesus says they neither married or given in marriage. They're like the angels. They don't marry. Everything we've looked at so far, they have appeared as men. The question is, are angels female? You think about the popular cultural thing on greeting cards. Angels take the form of women with wings and halos. But in everything we've seen in the scriptures, aside from where they're warriors, where they appear as chariots and horse-drawn chariots, or they appear as these magnificent things in the sky that I can't even imagine what he really saw. But those are figurative ways, or these are ways to describe the properties and not physical appearance. But in every time they appeared as a person, it was in the form of a man. So it could not. So angels really are not feminine in that respect.
I would also say that based on the scriptures that we have, when it says an angel of the Lord appeared and he said, it doesn't say and it said.
Yeah. Well,
I would assume that in signs of gender, so they appeared as men.
Right, and so that leads us to are angels men then? That's what I'm getting at. Are angels men?
Yeah, but wouldn't it also like maybe
When I say men, masculine is what I mean
have
to say.
something to do with the fact that man is over is like the head of the house?
Uh-huh.
So therefore, like women aren't supposed to they're supposed to stay silent and worship and stuff like that, where they're not supposed to lead spiritually.
Okay.
So maybe would that maybe
Over men. That's what you say has something important.
So they're all men because women.
And that goes back to the Garden of Eden. It was the woman who was beguiled by Satan, and not the man. And so that's saying that all women are easily beguiled? No, it doesn't mean that. But it just says that the woman was beguiled in the beginning. Okay. And the man wasn't.
In which they were.
I'm sorry?
I said you got to kind of think of the culture in which they were at the time, because a woman appearing and saying, God has told you you must do this. I don't think unless they were a priestess.
Okay. I know they're yeah.
I'm just saying a man carries more weight when he's saying he's speaking from God.
I know that God, because of what happened in the Garden of Eden, because of what Eve her choice was, and she was fooled by Satan, by his words. And for that reason, that's one of the reasons that God has established that a woman shall not take a dominant role over man in teaching the man. That's talking about grown, mature people. Okay. But as in the household, where the two parents are given the responsibility for rearing these children up, that God has given us these responsibilities. The man, of course, is the head of the household, is over the whole house, but yet the woman is given responsibilities to tend to the house, and it includes tending to the children. It includes, look at Lois and Eunice, Timothy's mother and grandmother, or grandmother and mother, okay? They taught him the scriptures from a babe. They were rearing him spiritually. Okay, so we talk about women can't teach. They're doing a very important thing and teaching Timothy the scriptures, teaching the way. You look at men and women of great character aren't born like that. Men and women of great character are reared and guided in that way. Okay, and that's because their parents, as they were rearing them, guided them in that way. And the woman is taking and Lois and Eunice taking that responsibility seriously. So they were rearing up Timothy for spiritual matters and, of course, character and integrity. That's things we want all of our children to have. Something I wish I had more of all the time, okay? When I say that, I could be better than what I am, okay? And I wish I were. And so as we think about when we rear our children, we rear them in such a way that they develop the greatest character that they can, and the greatest integrity that they can, so they will be a rock when they are leading the church. Whatever they do, what if they don't be, I mean, even in their secular life, people can see a leader. People can see people of great integrity and character, and they admire that, and that's something to follow. And I don't think that character and integrity is limited to men. No. You see women of the Bible that have great integrity and great character. Rahab, what she did was out of faith. The Hebrews chapter 11 talks about what she did because of her faith. She was a Gentile, yet she believed in the one God that was leading God's people around, and because of her belief in that, she acted in the benefit of these spies. Okay, look at Esther, what she did, in gaining audience with the king of Persia, the greatest kingdom of the day. And she took great risk, personal risk of what she did to get an audience to reveal to him what treachery was going on behind his back. Okay, but people don't talk about this either. Queen Vashti, she was also a Gentile. She was the original queen of Persia, the wife of the king. And what did she do? The king was throwing a big party. And he wanted Vashti, who was very beautiful, to come and present herself to them. He wanted people to admire how beautiful she was. In a way, a trophy. And some believe it was rather immodest in what he was asking her to do, demanding her to do. And she said no. She gave up her position because she was a woman of integrity. Okay, so that's just to illustrate integrity doesn't belong to just men.
We were talking about angels that I think we're given gender because it's that poetic device again. It's the anthropomorphic. They're spirits. They have no gender.
Right.
So
Well,
he's using the anthropomorphic language because in a patriarchal society,
yeah.
male was the dominant
Right.
gender. So
Okay.
I think in this case, angels and spirits don't have gender, but when they appeared, they would have appeared as men.
Okay.
Like, all the prophets were men, all the judges except for one were men, apostles were all men. That's just that was a patriarchal society where male was male.
And she also Aubrey brought up the fact that men, when they spoke, they have a level of clout, whereas a woman, when she would speak, the fact that she would, even in the Hebrew culture, the woman was not to take a dominant role over the men, and so I mean that's not something to do with Christianity. That's something that.
Yeah, because it says right here, given in marriage. At the time this was written, given in marriage refers to his daughter, father giving.
Right. So they don't marry or are given in marriage. Right. They are not. They don't marry. Okay.
Say if this is referring to a female given in marriage,
Okay.
that would be a female.
Okay. So it's neither married or given in marriage. So that, okay, so you think that maybe they are men and women? Well, I think he's making the point here that they don't marry. Okay? And as I see, for whom is marriage? Well, for one thing, marriage is for humans, mankind, and also for male and female. That's who marriage is for. So as Pam was speaking, and I used to think of that pretty much there, but there's something that hadn't been answered yet. I'll bring that up in a moment. That we look in the scriptures that our inheritance, we're in Christ, we're neither Jew nor Greek. We're neither bond nor free. We're not slave owners or slaves ourselves in the sense of our inheritance in heaven. And we're neither male nor female. In the sense that we all shall receive equal inheritance, not based upon our gender. It's not like the inheritance laws are or were in this land, where in the past, in the various cultures, it was the men who would receive the inheritance, and the women would be left with nothing. Okay. But this is not saying, though, that in Christ and the church, that men and women have the same roles. That's not what he's saying at all. But he is relating that when we enter into heaven, are we going to be male and female? Well, that question isn't answered. Are we going to lose our gender identity? That question has not been answered. Okay. I think things will change. I mean, it really hasn't. When we enter heaven, our bodies will change. And Jesus said we will not be marrying in heaven.
Why would we want to? I mean,
Huh?
purpose of marriage is to have someone who can help you get to Christ and that you can please each other in this life. There's not really a point to marriage in heaven, let alone in their gender identities, because
Right.
I would think
Okay.
that doesn't lead.
Okay, that's
That's
reasonable. There's no purpose for gender identities anymore because marriage won't be necessary because as it was, God saw that it was not good for man to be alone, so he created a woman for him. And the two would join together to become one. I think this is closely related to the relationships that God, the Son, the Father, God, the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit all have. They have someone. And so, as being created like God in his image, God gave us someone. Now, so there won't be a purpose for marriage and really no purpose for gender identity. But it doesn't say that it's eliminated. And what I'm getting at is, whereas the angels do not marry or are given in marriage, I, having thought that marriage was for male and female, quickly jumped to the conclusion that angels have no gender. But it doesn't say that. It does say they don't marry, but it doesn't say they don't have gender.
What isn't the original text? Doesn't it have male and like female,
Yes.
masculine words?
Yes, the language, both
Hebrew.
Hebrew.
That he was easier fit than.
Okay,
Instead of saying that the angel was a he,
yeah.
it was a masculine word that they used.
Right. You bring up, and that's another thing I wanted to revisit because you had said that they all appeared as he. They always referred to him, he. You know, the angels when they would show themselves as individual beings, a man. And so, well, does that mean then that they are really gendered as male, or is it that's the way they appeared because males have that authority figure, right? Or is it's a matter of grammatical construction. When we look at our human languages, foreign languages particularly, because English is really terrible. All languages except English, I don't know of any others, there might be others, are what they have gender. You have masculine nouns and feminine nouns. You have and the adjectives have to correlate, match you use masculine adjectives to describe masculine nouns and feminine adjectives to describe feminine nouns. So you have el gato, the cat. But here's the thing. Are there such thing as a el gato, el is being a masculine article to refer to the masculine noun cat, gato. But are there girl cats? What I'm getting at here is I'm going way beyond. I'm sorry. This is good. This is a good class. Let me finish this point. There are girl cats. But when you refer to a cat, you use it in the masculine form. But there are girl cats. Okay? So is this merely accommodative when they talk about the angels, you refer to them in the masculine form, where they really appeared as men? Well, it makes sense that they would. Or is it just referred to them and the masculine pronoun because that's the structure of the language? There are a lot of things in Spanish or French or German that when you use the masculine, you don't necessarily mean that they are manly. Or when you refer to them in the feminine, you mean they're effeminate or feminine. Okay? It's just the structure of the language is assigned certain nouns and certain should be masculine or feminine, and the adjectives that go along with it. And it's very helpful because as we look at the Greek, things that help us to understand what it's referred to is the masculine or feminine mode. I think it's called mode. masculine reference to the noun. A case in point is when you look in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, when it's referring to that which is perfect. Talk about when that which is perfect will come, that which is imperfect will be done away. That which is perfect is in the neuter form. Gives us a clue what that which is perfect is not. If it were masculine, it would refer to Christ. If it were feminine, I'm not sure what if it would refer to, but since it's in the neuter form, it cannot refer to Christ in his second coming. It refers to something else. And it has to do with, it's in the neuter form to deal with an abstract concept, okay, which that which is perfect is an abstract concept of that method of receiving knowledge that they had words. It's an impart system they were having. Okay, that's a spectacular example of why gender is so important in understanding Greek and translating the text. Okay, but so that's the observation that Crystal brings up, is that they referred to in the masculine form merely as a matter of grammatical construction, and not that they were actually male. But then they would appear as male just to have that the hearers to whom they appeared would have the proper understanding and respect for who this was. And of course, there were times when the angels appeared, people just cower. The guards at the tomb just cowered. They fell down as dead men because of the angel that appeared to them. Can you imagine these battle-hardened soldiers that are used to putting their very lives at risk in the front lines of battle, and they see this angel appear and they just fell down? You know, that's very impressive about the appearance of this angel. Had such an awesome appearance, the respect and fear of this being was incredible that you just gave up. Okay. Anyway, I've gone way beyond. I'm sorry. Today is the luncheon, and I'm sorry to delay that. I did the same thing this morning. I guess I'm becoming a real preacher. You just can't shut me up. Appreciate it. And we'll continue with this a little bit more, and we'll go more into other aspects of their angels. But as far as the angels' gender, and there's a good case that they are genderless. But there's just as good a case that they may very well be masculine in the sense that God is referred to in the masculine, but he's spirit. And so what need does he of having gender? And so that's, but I think that the Bible doesn't give us enough to say that they'd have no gender. But yet it doesn't give us enough to say they are genderless. Other than just.
Well, it still makes me think about the angels Gabriel and Archangel and Michael. I was looking at the verse where the one that says that he was disputing about the body of Moses.
Yes.
Where is that?
That was Hebrews.
Okay, yeah.
And he rather than giving accusation against Satan, he said, "The Lord rebuke you." Yeah.
Right. It just made me think of those two.
Mhm. But you know, just because if they have no gender doesn't mean they aren't as bold as we think of. We think of masculine characteristics as being bold and assertive and confrontational, stuff like that. Well, it doesn't mean that angels aren't. God is. I mean, it doesn't mean that God's not. I mean, if anything, God is as masculine can be. And yet, it's God who created the pink tulip, or the pink daisy, or if there are pink daisies, yeah.
What humans understand. You know, the Bible speaks to us so we can understand.
Yeah.
And we understand gender, we understand male.
Yeah.
And whether it's, you know, their spirits, we don't know what they look like, we have no concept of them. And so it's accommodated.
Yeah. I think so, yes. All right, well, thank you, and I appreciate all the comments. And I apologize for taking so long, but this is a good class. I appreciate the comments.